Okay, so my name is Ruslan Belovol. I came from Kiev, Ukraine, to this city. Unfortunately, I got some cold, and so I will do something like. Sorry, guys, in the first row. Yeah, today we'll talk about USB and new standard that we have, USB Audio Class 3, and we'll talk about features that came. We'll look also about some history. Look at history of USB audio. So I hope it will be interesting for you. So let's talk about USB. I see some USB experts here. So this bus is very old. For now, it's 23 years old. I don't know if there is anybody who is 23 or younger. No, only old people here. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah. So from the start, the speed was very low at the time. Now it's 28 gigabits per second, and it's very simple. So this picture is from the specification itself, and just for end user, just you have device, you have some USB port, you can just plug it, and it works just for you. So some short history of USB. So first standard was USB 1.0, released to widely released. USB 1.1 also was released 2 years after that. Next, USB organization usually defines some set of generic features or generic functions that you can use with USB. So one of that is USB Audio Class 1. So it was released 2 years after that, after our first USB release. Next was USB 2.0, a few years after that. And some manufacturers hacked USB Audio Class 1 to be working with USB 2.0. There is a hack. Sorry. And 6 years after that, USB Audio Class 2.0 was released. Then we have USB 3.0, and of course, we need to have USB Audio Class 3 that will incorporate all functions, all new functions that are present in USB 3.0. No. We have USB 3.1, and after that, we have USB Audio Class 3. So it was released 2 years ago, even more than 2 years ago. Only last year, driver came to the Linux kernel, and I don't know if still there is any hardware that you can buy in the market. Yeah, so USB 3.2, I don't know if we will see any new specification, audio specification after that. So what is USB Audio Class 1? So it's first audio over USB specification that was released a long time ago. It's something like standard, golden standard for Chinese manufacturers, because usually if you buy some cheap $1 or $2 USB audio card, it will be USB Audio Class 1. It is also it has also MIDI support, so you can connect your keyboard, piano keyboard, and play through. And also support was added in 2002 year. Important thing, this specification has also basic audio device support, specification support. So manufacturers who create some new hardware can follow this specification and create their USB audio class hardware using this specification, because there are many possible configurations and setups that can be done. So just a simple case of what it was looking at that time. So just some USB phone that you can connect through USB to your PC, for example. It has inputs, outputs, its terminals, and some internal functions. Not only switches, but can be equalization or some audio processing. Next, Audio Class 2.0. So, as I already told, hardware manufacturers hacked Audio Class 1.0 to be able to work at USB 2.0 speeds. And this was mentioned even in this specification. That was wrong. So there are many improvements. Many improvements like added audio controls, added more speakers that can be possible, clock support, At this time, this specification is usually used by some professional audio devices manufacturers. One issue with this specification, it is incompatible with USB audio class 1. That's why people who uses Windows, I don't think that any of you use Windows, but at Windows there was always issue with driver for USB audio class 2. So I know that recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, they added this driver by default to Windows. So Microsoft. In Linux it was available a long time ago. Yeah, so it's also one of examples how the audio function looks, audio class 2 function. Also we have input terminals, output terminals, some logic units that can work with the audio, some mixers, processing feature units. It's a simple case, so if you have some professional audio card, it may be much more complicated. So what kind of issues we have with USB audio class 1 and 2 specifications? If you look at such case with phones, when you have limited power, a limited battery. So first of all, power management was not good. It was designed to be working with some PC, laptops with big battery. And compatibility between versions. So if you buy new USB audio stick, USB audio class 2, you cannot just plug and work with hosts that do not support old new version of driver. So now we have USB audio class 3.0. And what we have? First of all, we have USB super speed support. We have basic audio device profile support. It's mandatory now. So manufacturers who create USB audio card must provide one of BADD profiles. We have now power domains, so we can control power. We have connectors. So if you plug your, for example, headphones to USB audio card, host can know about this. New strings descriptors. It's more interesting for people who develop driver. Support of link power management from USB 3. Burst mode that allows us to transfer more data and then sleep for more time. And it is also incompatible with previous specification, but there is some backward compatibility mode. I will talk about it later. Yeah, important feature. So it's already supported in Linux. It is supported in Linux even before real hardware exists in the market. So yeah, I hope at the time when real hardware will be present in the market, all of you will be able to just buy it, plug with 2 Linux hosts, and work with it. So let's start from BADD. What is BADD? So USB audio class specification is quite complex. So any manufacturers can design its own device. That means that people who write USB audio driver should also add this support. In the Linux world, we have only one driver, and it is in Linux kernel. So for the case when just manufacturer added some special feature that is not supported by driver and it doesn't work correctly, there is mandatory support of BADD specification. The issue with this specification, it looks like USB organization wanted to widely adopt this specification, so even to use it with some microcontrollers, some simple hosts. So they these profiles do not have some class-specific descriptors, and that's the issue. Sorry, you have to guess it. So you have to look at some like indirect things, like size of endpoint transfer data, number of endpoints, and finally you have to guess what is this. What is this? But this is useful for hosts that do not have like big USB stack. There are three topologies, very simple: input, output, and input-out. So it's like microphone, headphone, and headset. Mono stereo only, 48 kilohertz, only 16 or 24 bits, burst mode, and power management. Sorry. Example. So here is some simple example of input-output topology. We have audio in, which is connected to logical USB in, logical USB out, which is connected to audio out. We can switch or mix in with out, and this is simple, very simple topology that will be present, should be present on any device. And here we see like two, I don't see, so there are two colors, pink and blue, which reflect like power domains that we will talk about right now. So if we do not use some part of our USB audio headset or headphone, why we should have the circuits powered up? We can just disable them. So, for example, if you have headphones, headset, and you listen to some music, and you don't need to have amplifiers for microphones enabled, so you can just disable it. So host can control this, and this will save some power for you. Here are some examples. So we have one power domain, first, second power domains, and each can be independently switched on and off, or put to some intermediate power states. Now let's talk about compatibility with old hosts. So what kind of issue we have here? Some traditional USB device usually consists of one configuration. You see one device is just usually one configuration that supports USB audio class 1. Same is for USB 2. They are not compatible. But with USB 3, things are more complicated. At least you have support two configurations. First configurations is default configurations, and it should be USB 1 or USB 2. That means if you connect your device to some old host, this configuration will be selected automatically, and you will work using old function without like all fancy features, but it will work just for you. So even with old Linux or Windows host, it will work. Next configuration is also mandatory to support these basic audio device profiles. So if you have some new recent host, USB host with Linux, for example, which already support this, host can be clever enough to select this configuration. It should be clever enough to support this configuration. And if you want to have, but this configuration only have like limited set of features. So only 2 channels, 1 or 2 channels on 48 kilohertz. If you have, if you want to have full support of all features that we have with USB audio class 3, you have to select third configuration. And that's also some difficulties for Linux itself. We'll talk about this later. But at least you can buy some new device. At least you can plug it into old host and it will work somehow, but it will work. So current state. So during last year, many features were merged to Linux kernel. So initial USB audio class 3 support was merged in 4.17. Then basic audio device profile support were merged. The issue is that basic audio device profiles was you have to write like full driver, and then you need to somehow incorporate or use somehow to detect what is the device in BADD mode. So that's why BADD profiles were added later. Connector insertion, that's also a new feature with USB audio class 3 specification. Was added later. Power domains, so it is supported now. USB configuration switching, that was also under discussion some time ago. We'll talk about this later. So configuration switching is now present. in the very recent kernel, USB audio class A gadget driver. That the thing I was discussing with some maintainers or people who work with USB audio gadgets some time ago. I did not finish it yet, and class-specific string parsing is not even started. That's kind of, but all what we need to listen some music, to have power management support, configuration, automatic configuration switching is already present in Linux kernel. So it's just some kind of summary, but it's not summary, but some benefits that USC3 brings for us. So it will work on all hosts. It will not incorporate new features, but just work. And it has mandatory BADD profile support. And this also means that if you will plug your device to PC, it will just work. Power saving improvements. I never seen this in real life yet, but there is I saw some synopsis proof of concepts. So they measured power consumption and audio pass from like digital output of SOC, some SOC system machine. Then you have another amplifier, some switches or so. And they compared it with USB audio class 3 device with all power management enabled, and they see that it's comparable. So around the same power consumption. That's also good for us. It's alternative for 3.5 jack support. I know that's a holy war for all people. I also have a phone, it's a Pixel 3, I think, which does not have jack support. I cannot listen to music even charge my device. But at least it's not only can be used with your phones, it can be used also with your laptops or some modern hardware. And it's already supported by Linux. So what every geek expects when he buys some phone, what he wants to have. I'd like to have something like this. Yeah, people know. At least 12 headphone jacks for big party. Unfortunately, what we will have in the near future, and I think what we have right now, that's what I already have. Hit the road jack. So we have some time, so let's talk about challenges that we had during the implementation of this driver. First of all, it's the quality of USB.org documentation. USB Implementation Forum releases their documentation to USB.org site, website. Unfortunately, they have many mistakes. I collected the list of that mistakes and wrote an email for them. Please fix it, or please give me some real information, because there was some part that were missing in this documentation. So I had to guess them also. I found some examples at the end of this documentation, and I found some numbers. I was really surprised because quality of documentation was bad, and nobody answered to me. There was one engineer, Pierre-Louis Boussard. He is in the ALSA Linux mailing list, so he is active there, and he was a part of that USB.org committee who worked on this documentation, and he shared some previous part of previous version unreleased of the specification. So I was able to pick up all like magic numbers from that place. But unfortunately, we still don't have some official release of that. Next issue, how to write a driver for non-existent hardware. Yeah, so that's a really issue. There's one case, possible case, use quick emulation, QEMU, and there is a dummy HCD kernel module that is something like virtual host and gadget. And you can write some host and gadget drivers, so you can emulate your hardware. Unfortunately, it does not support ISO packets, so it's a USB packet. So unfortunately, I was not able to test real audio at the time, but this works, and it speeds up really implementation of new hardware. So first of all, I just wrote an emulated version of some USB device, USB audio card, and then wrote driver. What the issue here? If I have a bug on one side, I have most probably bug on another side. Another approach, yeah, and another approach, use BeagleBone Black. Who knows what is this BeagleBone Black? Wow, that's cool. Yeah, so for the rest of people, it's some small board that has USB that can be used as gadget, so you can create some USB device inside. And I did it next way. So on PC, I implemented UAC 3 driver. For BeagleBone Black, I implemented UAC 3 gadget driver. I posted first version of this gadget driver to mailing list. Unfortunately, I did not finish reworking it still. So I plugged also some audio card and used also loop tool, which just routes audio from one card to another card, and it worked for me. So if anyone wants to try, you can pick up my old patch UAC 3 for gadget, apply it to your BeagleBone kernel, and just run it. And another challenge. So since nobody worked with this, there was no enough reviews. So the patch was really big. I spent a lot of time writing it, and I spent, I think, more time reviewing it by myself. And when I sent it to community, I did not get any feedback first time. Yeah. So nobody works with this hardware. Nobody wants to look at this specification, and yeah. Fortunately, this engineer, Pierre Bossard, he did some initial review of my driver. Most of the comments were not relevant. Yeah. Yeah?
It might actually be that your implementation now becomes the standard implementation that everybody will be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, so fortunately, there was some engineer who worked on some unreleased hardware, who picked up my patches, also started using them, and at the time he, I hope, did some initial review and testing on some unreleased hardware. Another thing is BIDD specification, how to guess descriptors first, and second, how to pass them to ALSA subsystem. So that guy who worked on that unreleased hardware, he created next approach. So you guess what descriptors are, and you just generate them on the fly. So full set of USB descriptors, you emulate a full USB audio card. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was big, covered only few profiles. Then another implementation came out. So just simple implementation, and we just check if this is a BIDD profile. Then we know that's 1 or 2 channel. So just simple checking, and it was much simpler, and it was accepted in mainline, and it covered all profiles with less number of code. And switching between configurations. So we have 3 configurations, at least 2 or 3 configurations now. How to switch between them? Who should do it? Initially, I did it manually, just using sysfs, write long echo command. I didn't think about that at the time. I wanted community to think about that. I was thinking about something like USB mod switch tool, but maybe USB audio switch tool. Fortunately, some guy just came with approach of switching it in kernel, and it was accepted by Greg and fixed it again recently. So that's all from my side. Any questions? While I think I wanted to do this from beginning. Yeah. So, and yeah.
Come on.
So we've got 3 configurations. Have you tested this USB gadget? I expect that you implemented USB function, yeah? So you need to have, to create a gadget, you need 3 different USB functions, right?
No, I need 3 different USB configurations.
Yeah, and then you link the same function to 3 different configurations and create 3 different behaviors, 3 different sets of descriptors.
Yeah, that's the issue. With USB audio class 1 or 2, we don't have this issue,
Yeah.
because we use first configuration. And this is my headache with USB audio class 3, because I will need to generate many of descriptors that we usually do as static variables, static structures. I had to generate them like on the fly. Yeah, and that's the issue with this gadget driver. So that's why it is not published. Final version is not published yet. I'm a little bit lazy.
You know, I'm kind of thinking about registering 3 different USB functions from a single file, and just, you know, write in doc that this one is desired for the first configuration, this one is desired for the second one, etc., and up to user to decide whether he wants to use it or not. So this simplify.
I want to say that there's another issue, actually, a little bit different issue with that. Each USB function creates its own audio card. So now we have on the system, when we insert this audio gadget to kernel, you will have 3 audio cards. And that's another issue, how to deal with them. And 3 audio cards with like different setups, different functions, different things supported. That's the real issue, I think. Because
It's the same issue like the guys had when they, for now it's not possible to implement the equivalent of Gether, because in Gether you had a single Ethernet interface which was shared between 2 functions, and then when we switch to config.fs, we cannot create a full equivalent of that, because when we have 2 functions, we've got 2 separate network interfaces. So at the time there was a discussion that maybe we should somehow rework the gadget framework to allow for matching between resources provided by function and functions that use these resources to allow that kind of sharing. So maybe it's a good opportunity to come back to that discussion. And
yeah, okay. I wanted to first to post my patch and then start this discussion, because the real issue is just with that USB audio interfaces. Yeah. Somebody from that side?
Yeah, just to be clear, you don't have to be a USB 3.0 device in order to implement the UAC 3.0.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can take my old implementation of a sound card and just add the 2 configurations, and that should be fine.
Yeah,
I
me too.
Just say that the speed is required.
No, it's USB audio class 3 incorporates features from USB 3.0 specification, but it is not required. It will work even as backward compatible in like older version of USB. So I think we run out of time. Yeah, thank you.